Good evening, folks. Red County, Blue Nation, Westcliff, Colorado. Stephen Rorick, Mike Boring on the console. Jimmy McMahon should be here just any second. We have our guest tonight, Byron Elliott and Katie Pierce. How are you guys doing this evening?
Great. Thank you. Yeah.
We're doing great, Steve. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for coming. I sure do appreciate it. So I guess tonight we're going to talk about how our great state of Colorado has maybe trying to take advantage of what we're doing with our property rights, our personal rights, a lot of these things that maybe we don't understand's happening to us, but yet it's unfolding behind the scenes and all that good stuff. Jimmy, what's up, buddy, yo?
Turning and burning. Giving and a living.
So, yeah.
Good to see you.
You as well, Jimmy. Nice to meet you.
Good to meet you guys.
Nice to meet you.
Right on. Stephen, thank you for introducing these folks to the community.
Yep, you bet. So everyone, Katie and Byron and Katie also own the feed store, the Be Social feed store here in town. So kind of a good little opportunity to get to know some of the community members here. And I guess if you guys want to tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Byron. So I'm going first.
I'll kick.
Is that amphitheater part of that?
It is.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
good. Okay.
Yep.
Uh-huh.
Yep. 2.2 acres, and then the parking lot across the street as part of that purchase and part of that property. So
Very nice.
yeah, it's a great property. It's beautiful. Everyone's pretty familiar with it. So I guess a little background. Katie and I are both retired from the Army. 24 years in the Army in various positions. I was an artilleryman, logistician, operations guy. Near the tail end of our career, we started getting into legal work. So the typical question is, were you guys attorneys in the military? No, we weren't. It was at the tail end of our career. We went to law school together and graduated and opened a small firm in 2013. Katie kind of carried the water for that firm from 2013 until I retired in 2019. I'll let you talk about the legal work that you do. But in 2019, our firm kind of pivoted into working with real estate entrepreneurs, raising private equity to purchase real estate assets like multifamily, or commonly known as apartments, self-storage facilities, RV parks, mobile home parks, ground up development, those kind of things. And so at some point, shortly thereafter, we started doing some of the same activities. And so we worked with investors to raise private equity, a couple mobile home parks in Canyon City. We did some mixed use historic properties, so renovated currently 4 historic properties using some combination of federal tax credits, state tax credits, different programs and whatnot. So our experience here is a little bit from the developer perspective, but also we have legal clients who have acquired somewhere in the neighborhood of $2.5 billion in real estate assets. And so,
Did you say billion?
billion, yes. Not us. Not us.
Yeah.
No, I understand
not
that,
us.
but I'm just saying you're associated with a pretty powerful. Steve, did you get a little sunshine today?
Yeah, looks like you did too.
Oh, did you now?
You both have red
Farm
shades.
boy. I'm telling you, it's hot out there. Well, continue. Right on, man. You guys are definitely a blessing to this community. So thank you.
Well, yeah. So when we talk tonight, we'll talk from the perspective of being real estate developers and some of the challenges that we see in Colorado, and then some of the challenges that maybe our clients are facing in similar states, the way that Colorado's headed, and some of the issues and challenges they've had. And then I'll defer to Katie. She's really the expert here tonight. She does some interesting work with the Workforce Housing Coalition, and she really looks into the legislation that's coming out of the Capitol and some of the things that are really, really concerning from a property owner's rights perspective. So I know that that's near and dear to your heart here, and so that's why I think she's going to be the star of the show tonight.
So yeah, realistically, so there's a lot of different titles to attorneys, the specialities of what they do. And it sounds like you guys are more into the real estate side of that. And Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's-
So Jimmy, that's about 90% of the work that we do is if you want to pool money together from private investors and you don't want to register like a stock, bond, or mutual fund. And the same thing applies to real estate, other endeavors, distilleries, and ATM funds, and anything that you can think of where you want to raise money from investors and not have to register with the Securities and Exchange Commission like a stock, bond, or mutual fund. Our legal practice, we have a handful of attorneys that help you navigate the securities laws.
So the freedom that gives individuals and not being trapped by the securities deal is a huge lateral movement, and the freedom to be able to be profitable. Got it. Okay.
Yeah, so yeah, it's a beautiful little part of the legal practice. We love it because we're working with entrepreneurs. They're very motivated. They're very optimistic.
Risk takers.
They're risk takers.
That have already taken risks. They've made profit. And one of the things that I found out is some of the people that come out of school nowadays, they have no idea what profit and loss is. You have a teacher that went through school, went to college, and then now they're teaching school. So you got a huge environment of not a lot of hands-on or realistic. So Steve and I try to get solution-oriented and look at things. Where's the heart of the matter? Where are we losing it? So this is going to be some knowledge that's very priceless. So you folks listen to this, and it's educational, and it's very timely.
Yeah, I'd love to dig into that a little bit.
That's a great
She
point.
knows I'm chomping on the bit right now, but
Yeah.
I'm gonna defer to Katie for the time being, and I would love to circle back to that.
No,
because
I understand. No,
Yeah.
and a lot of us have that on our consciousness because a lot of us have had to actually make profit. We took the risk, and we exposed ourselves to the profit and loss, and it is very personal, especially if somebody, an elected official, starts wasting that money. That's where it really gets a little touchy.
Yeah. I would say the Colorado climate right now is the government doesn't necessarily care about business or small business. And they care about, you can see it in property rights, right? You can still have a contract. So if you have a commercial tenant, you can still have a contract between the landlord and the tenant. If it's a residential tenant, it's completely different. So Colorado is essentially taking away the property rights and the ability for a landlord to contract with a residential tenant, because they believe that a tenant has a right to housing.
Well, everybody
So-
gets a trophy, no matter
Yeah.
if you earned it or not.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a socialistic type of government.
Yes. So it's not necessarily caring about that person who's paying the mortgage or the property taxes or anything like that. It's caring about the person who needs a house, right? And what are you going to do to find that solution?
So I call that the government playing God.
Yeah, essentially that's what's
And-
happening.
And that's not, the government's job is to keep evil under.
Right.
It's yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a huge contrast.
Yeah.
It's a huge contrast.
Well, it just doesn't work that way. I mean,
No, it's
we're seeing
Pissing
just-
up a rope pretty hard.
Yes, that people who invest in properties so that there can be rentals are leaving Colorado because they don't want to invest in Colorado because Colorado is not a good investment climate.
It's crippling.
To have,
It's crippling to an individual
Yeah.
that takes their money,
yeah,
that puts it in housing, and then somebody comes along, has no money, and they rent your house or your duplex or whatever it is, and they have more rights and the ability to influence your life through the government and take power over you. That's just asinine.
Mm-hmm.
It's 100% asinine.
yeah. That's true. It's just getting worse.
It is. No, it's snowballing.
Yes.
Before we get too far, Katie,
Yes.
tell us
Okay.
a little bit about yourself, if you would.
So I have a very similar background to Byron, but for some random reason, we both retired after 24 years in the military, but he just retired 5 years earlier than I did.
Because I'm older.
I was a intelligence officer in the Army, so I did strategic intelligence and I did tactical intelligence. So I was stationed I worked at the National Security Agency for a little bit. I was stationed at Fort Hood. I was stationed all over the country before I retired. I retired last year. And so that's my military background. My legal background, when we started the law firm, we started with family law and civil litigation. And so I did mainly that. Sometimes it went into criminal law with domestic violence with my family law clients, but pretty much did a general practice for 6 years until we transitioned into small business and real estate. And I also I manage all of the properties that we own and kind of project manager for the historic properties that we renovate.
Very
So,
interesting.
yeah, and so it is very near and dear to my heart what is happening in Colorado with property rights. And I'm on a workforce housing coalition now that we're trying to influence bills that are being passed and trying to kind of tailor back and scale back some of these ridiculous bills that are just, again, they're essentially taking away a landlord's ability to contract with a tenant. Tenants have all the power in Colorado at this point, and landlords have no power, and it's just continuing to get worse. So,
Well, that's good to know. I doubt most people have any idea that that's the
Yeah.
way that it's going. That's actually pretty dang weird. I mean, yeah. It's
Yeah.
like that
So,
kind of makes you.
so for example, a bill just got passed where a tenant has the ability to pay a security deposit for 6 months. So you can't make pretty soon, and I can't remember when the effective date is of the bill, but you cannot have a tenant move into your house and say, okay, here's the security deposit. You have to give them 6 months to pay it, and it can only be equivalent to 1 month's rent. So that is just one example. There's examples of you can't charge tenants for wear and tear on carpet anymore, or if they scrape up your walls and you want to have them repainted, you can't charge for that. I mean,
Damages.
there's all sorts of things that that Colorado is taking a landlord's ability away to basically pay for their damages.
Absolutely.
And you just have to suck it up. Yeah.
That, so what other states are kind of like that? I mean,
Washington State, California. So it was really interesting. So I had a rental property in Washington State before I moved to Colorado 18 years ago. And I swore I would never have another rental property because I had such a hard time in Washington. And when I was doing this workforce housing coalition, I'm like, man, these laws are so similar to what happened in Washington. And Colorado in 2006, 2007 was a great state, right? It was a great state to invest in, to have rental properties. And one of the lobbyists that we work with said, yeah, we are modeling our laws after Washington. We are pulling Washington laws and modeling them after Washington. So that's exactly what's happening.
Yeah, the other thing that's significant here is we think the people that are writing this legislation coming out of the Capitol here in Colorado, you can just tell they've never been business owners, or very few of them have,
landlords,
or
yeah.
landlords of own property, because the practical effect of these onerous regulations and putting these expenses back onto the landlord that are expenses that you would usually contract between two adults, right? Legally speaking, when you write a contract, you're an adult contracting with an adult. There's a meeting of the minds. You say, I want to rent this place for this amount of money. I understand what's in the lease agreement. I understand what are my expenses. I understand I have a security deposit. I understand if I ruin the place, my security deposit is lost. I understand if I'm going to have a pet, which doesn't matter what kind of pet, unless it's a snake, it's going to cause some form of damage to the property, right?
Yeah.
Or a turtle. So usually you can contract. So you have a meeting of the minds between two adults, and what they've done is taken that away. And what I think they don't realize is that every expense that's incurred by the landowner over a year's time is eventually going to be passed off to either that tenant or newer tenants. So there's a conflict between, we have a shortage of attainable and affordable housing in Colorado. So each of this little bit of legislation that's enacted increases expenses for the landowner, which is going to ultimately increase expenses to the tenants. So evictions, for example, you can talk a little bit about those, but it increases legal expenses for the landowner. Well, who's ultimately going to pay that?
Right.
You think there's some infinite amount of money that the landowner is just going to fork over? No, because generally speaking, landowners have a contractual agreement with the bank. And with the bank, you have to make enough money to cover your debt service. There's a debt service coverage ratio. So while the 24-year-old idealists that are up there writing legislation at the Capitol, and it's getting shotgun through without anybody scrutinizing it and providing some critical feedback on the practical effect of what it is, they're shotgunning this legislation through. But they don't account for the cost to the landowner, who also has to pay the bank pursuant to a loan agreement, another contractual agreement between adults. So they're treating people like children, currying favor in the interest of winning votes, but it's counterproductive to the fact that there's a shortage of affordable and attainable housing. So you're screwing over the landowners. So practically speaking, I talk to my clients, I'm like, guys, if you want to invest in Colorado, you understand these are the risks associated with investing in Colorado because it's so damn expensive. They'll look elsewhere. They're going to other friendly states like Texas, Florida,
Tennessee,
other states
Georgia.
that are much more friendly to landowners, and understand these are adults. You're a tenant entering into an adult relationship with the landlord, and the landlord's entering into an adult relationship with the lender. So you're treating people like children, and the practical effect is nobody wins. All right, I'm sorry. I'm a little fired up.
That's really good points, Byron. I don't think many people understand how this really actually is affecting and how it's really going. And I mean, that's really a good, simple explanation when you're talking about an adult to an adult. They're getting away from that.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's a really good explanation.
Let me give you another example. And I'm sorry,
you're
been a wet blanket here, but
Go for it.
COVID is a great example, right? So during COVID, knee-jerk reaction to government, generally speaking, is let's provide relief for tenants that can't pay rent because of COVID-related restrictions or illnesses.
So COVID was great for landlords. Let's just say it was great for landlords. you got paid for days, right? But we saw tenants getting as much as $9,000 in lease aid, right, or rent aid from the government at one time. So it was great we didn't have any issues with tenants not paying rent during COVID.
Initially.
Very artificial, though.
Initially.
Oh, totally artificial.
Right.
Yeah.
But then the residual effect of that
and as
is
soon as it ended,
tenants think that they don't have to pay rent. Well,
The social conditioning that took place.
that's
Yes.
really
Yeah.
brutal.
they
Well,
spent
there-
it somewhere else,
Yeah,
right?
there's
Yeah.
a reprieve for the tenants, and they did spend it on it. It's crazy. There's a reprieve for tenants then where they think that they don't have to pay rent, or they're conditioned, to your point, that they don't have to pay rent. Well, lenders don't care about that
Yeah,
condition.
property owners
They
still
don't
had to
give one
pay.
rip
Right.
about
Yeah.
that.
Right.
Yeah.
So the lenders are like, hey, the note's due. And I'm like, well, I don't know, my tenants aren't paying because
They're
COVID
spoiled.
happened.
They're spoiled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
They're entitled.
it's brutal, but those are just another example of policies that are coming up.
Unintended consequences.
Yes.
Oh, without it. So in the military, right, we like to red team things. So you plan and you red team it. You go, what is the enemy going to do? Right? This is our plan. And at every stage along that plan, what is the enemy going to do? And so we call it red teaming, right? So that we can walk through and figure out, okay, at this point, the enemy is going to do this, so that we're going to do this. Well, in the government, and I asked the lobbyists, like, does any of that happen? Does anybody go through the second and third order effects of the bills that are being passed?
What's that?
And she said, no, it never happens.
We don't even know what you're talking about.
They don't actually go through, okay, we passed this bill. Now what happens, right? What is the effect of that? Nobody talks about it. They just pass them. They just pass the bills.
Scary.
It is really scary.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the judges don't know what to do at this point, especially with landlord tenant stuff, because it's changing so rapidly. That they're confused, and the courts are putting out different templates that aren't necessarily abiding by the law or going by the law. So landlords are confused. Tenants can actually get restraining orders now against landlords.
You can't
if they
trespass on your own property.
Yeah, or if they harass them because the tenant wants something fixed that they say that the landlord isn't doing. The landlord has to put them up in suitable housing within 10 miles of where they live. It has to have a kitchen. It has to have a place for their animals if they have animals. I mean, it's just, it's so over the, and you have a very short amount of time to fix stuff as a landlord. You think, I mean, as a property owner, if something goes down in our house, like we've had our pipe freeze in our house, right? And it actually froze outside of our house, and we were without water for about a month. Well, we figured it out. And we figured out what to do. If that happens with a tenant, I mean, unless you have 3 or 4 months of reserve income, you're screwed.
Yeah.
Because you have to figure it out within 24 hours. You have to figure it out. If you don't, you have to put them in another location, right? They can sue you.
Wow.
And actually, the state of Colorado now can actually come in and step into the shoes of a tenant. And you can have criminal charges. So not only civil now, you can have criminal charges brought against you for landlord-tenant stuff. So warranty of habitability. You can have criminal charges brought against you as a property owner for certain things.
That's almost kind of hard to believe.
It is.
Well, no, that's how
yeah.
far over the rails we are in socialism and Marxism and in the state ruling an individual. And the Constitution is all about the individual's right.
Yeah.
And to be here again, we're getting into the abuse, where the government is abusing the individual and stepping into areas that they have no business. And then you have a judiciary segment that goes along with this poppycock idea, because here again, they're looking for votes.
Right.
And I mean, it's just an environment of lack of knowledge and then government overreach.
Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
and that's what we've really got to work on as a country. I mean, this is coast to coast.
So what are we doing, Katie, to try to mitigate this? I mean, I know that it's kind of difficult and it's going to take some time, but I mean, it's through the legislation, so that's
Right.
part of with the whole housing coalition that you work with.
Yeah, so it's lobbyists, but there's just, to be honest with you, it's been really frustrating because we can change like a word, or we can change a comma, or we can take out 4 words. But because our representatives in Colorado are so blue, I mean, I'm just going to say it, that's how it is, right?
That's a pretty kind way of putting it.
They are so blue, it doesn't matter what everybody else thinks. The bills that get put in front of them are going to pass, and they're passing. And it's extremely frustrating because, again, and some of this stuff is just, it's not even legal, right? It's totally opposite of the law, but you have to go through the process of suing. So you have a bill that passes, right? It could be, it could not follow or abide by a certain law. And then you have to go through and spend the time to spend the money and to spend taxpayers' money to sue and to try to get it fixed. And it just doesn't make sense. For example, we have a great example. So the Mobile Home Park Act. So mobile home, Colorado is so protective of mobile home owners. And it's great to a degree, right? Because mobile home owners should not be forced out, especially, I mean, if they own their home, right? You should not be forced out of your mobile home park for whatever reason, because mobile homes are very difficult to move, right? So Colorado has become so over the top with protecting mobile home owners that, for example, you could have a mobile home park that only has tenants. You have no owners, right? They all just they rent their mobile homes. Before you sell your mobile home, you have to give every mobile home tenant a 120-day notice. You have to give them notice. You have to tell them what you're selling it for, what terms and conditions you're putting on the sale. If you accept an offer, what that offer is. If you do due diligence, what that due diligence is. You have to give 120 days for some like I don't even know. It doesn't even make sense. But 120 days for some homeowners association to come in and potentially buy it from the property owner before they can actually sell it to who wants to buy it. You have to give notice to the state that you're selling it. And some of this stuff is so overreaching that it doesn't even make sense. Legally, it doesn't make sense, right? Because mobile home tenants don't have the same legal property rights as mobile home owners. But it doesn't matter. Colorado said, well, that doesn't matter. We're protecting mobile home owners and mobile home parks. So we're just going to make these generic laws that apply to everybody. And they're destroying a property owner's right to sell their property to somebody who wants to buy it.
Yeah, I think the additional practical effect, that's one example with mobile home tenants. Tenants in apartment complexes and even single family homes, or some rights afforded that on the surface it sounds like a good thing. It always sounds like a good idea, right? It's like you have to protect tenants' rights, which you do, and there were laws in place to account for that. But the steeping of what those rights are and the lessening of the rights of the actual landowner, the practical effect is you're gonna have a hard time incentivizing developers to build apartment complexes or single family homes or duplexes or quadplexes. So we have this housing crisis on one hand, but then on the other hand, you're disincentivizing developers who are willing to your point, take the risk, put their own capital at risk, spend their own time developing property.
And it cripples capitalism.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not going to invest in something that you don't make money in.
Right.
It just doesn't make sense.
Well, especially if there's a lot of risk to it.
Yeah.
Well, and there is. Stevie, you're a rancher. Hey, guy, you're a cattleman. And the amount of risk that takes place in farming and ranching is, if you haven't done it, you don't know. Mm-hmm. But it's massive. One day you're the bug and the next day you're the windshield.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes down to finances nowadays, in the legal right for somebody that is taking over your property for a minute with a contract of whether it's, you know what I mean? And then them to possess more power than you do, it's asinine.
Yeah.
You can't protect your investment. I try to break things down in very simple terms. Although the complexity of, we could change a comma or we could change a letter. And the ripple in the pond is you didn't even see it.
Right.
You didn't even see the ripple in the pond, and you got, 400 hours of people trying to break through and say, look, we have a one-sided coin here where the renters have so much more power and authority over the people that actually own the property. That is so upside down backwards. And here again, I'm going to say it again. It's the government trying to play God. And when that starts happening, and when they're interceding on the behalf of somebody that has less or is, you know what I mean? You can live in your car. You can live under a bridge. You're going to have to bootstrap up somewhere. But to abuse a person that, has gained their way in this political and financial atmosphere, to cripple them, boy, that's just asinine. It's just asinine. So here again, I go back to tax paying. You pay your taxes. They use it for abortion. They teach your children Common Core, and they pervert their. I mean, we as American people are going to have to step up and get involved in all of these aspects.
Yeah,
the
I
rental
think that's
thing,
what it takes. Yeah, without a doubt. I mean,
It's-
there are a whole lot of bills that were passed on the subject you were just talking
absolutely,
about too.
and that's why I'm
with-
bringing that up.
Yeah, with parents now who can actually, I probably don't want to go there, but in family law, if you are a parent who doesn't side with your child who is transitioning or calling them another name than they want to be called, you can actually lose parenting rights now in the Colorado courts, and the court can find that is not in the child's best interest. I mean, it is so overreaching. I don't think people understand. I didn't even understand until it hit close to home with a lot of this stuff that we were trying to do with our properties. And I'm like, why is this happening? And then getting into what the changes in the law were, because every month there would be something different where, oh, nope, you can't do that now. Oh, no, a landlord, you have to give more notice. Now you do jury trials for every eviction. If a tenant wants a jury trial now, they can have a jury trial. And we're talking about a simple property right. And so it's just delay. But
Well, the word bizarre.
it is bizarre. Yes.
I mean, go ahead, folks, look that word up because that's where we're at. It is bizarre. I mean, for us to have this conversation, for us to be talking about issues to this degree of perversion, it's bizarre.
Yeah.
I mean, this would have never happened.
But we have to change the representatives who are at the Capitol making the laws. That's the big point.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
the main point there, isn't it?
Yeah.
Vote the people. Yeah, well, and of course, everybody, we already all know that, folks. It's the people that you elect that are representing your representative. That's how we've gotten into this mess, right? So it's back to the voting booths, and I mean that's another sticky subject when
And
we're
here
talking
again, it
about.
comes down to education. And the amount of education that's coming forth right now with people that are in that arena, with the two of you, should shed some light on people's consciousness to say, wow, maybe I need to go to the voting booth. Maybe I need to vote for maybe I need to run for something to raise the standard in order to get the evil out of the environment, because the government is there to keep evil under. It's not to suppress good people from doing good things. And what we're doing is we're encouraging bad behavior.
Right.
The government right now is so contaminated, it encourages not working hard, no work ethic, no pride. The people have been contaminated with this free handout during COVID, that their spirits and souls are contaminated with, I'm entitled. Man, I was making $350 a week. COVID came along. I made $600, $700, $800, $900 a week, and I didn't have to go to work. That ruined people. That is a human nature debacle that took place, and now we've got to come out of that. But the government has encouraged that kind of Nimrod stuff. I mean, it's absolutely just diabolical. And I'm somebody that's carving out a life. They said, here's a dull knife and here's a hard piece of wood, and get after it. I didn't have anybody giving me nothing. I had nobody to lean on. So I do have, you can do it.
Absolutely.
You can bootstrap up and excel and get to where you need to be. And it's better to give than it is to receive. And what they've done is reverse that. Mm-hmm. It's better to get from somebody and not give. And that's contamination of the American and the human spirit. So to me, that's the heart of the matter. But it does come down to the legal realm.
Yeah.
And it comes in, man, we're going to the legislation. Oh, we switched to comma. Ooh, look at us go now. But the concept has never been interfered with. The whole concept of those people in Denver, they're like, no. We're going to give these people that don't really want to do a lot, they don't understand about contributing, and they're going to continue to enable them. And to me, that's the sourness. That's what sours everything. And those people need to be held accountable for enabling.
Yeah. So that's a big issue right now, is that, I mean, you have people, and majority is, we in Colorado, the Colorado government is going to make decisions based on what we see in Denver, right? And it's going to affect the entire state of Colorado. Well, I'll tell you what, Westcliff is not the same as Denver, is not the same as Thornton, is not the same as Mesa, is not the same as Grand Junction. I mean,
Westminster, Golden.
Yeah,
All
none of
of
these
them
places,
have.
none of these
Absolutely.
places are the same. And you have
A blanket.
a government who is making decisions based on what they see in one place, because they are the majority of the population. And so unless something changes, your officials at the local level are not going to have much power, because they are trying to control it all at the state level.
So
And so something at the state, it has to change.
In
Your state
absolutely.
representatives.
And I guess where I go with the local government is, if something is unconstitutional and it violates individual rights, and a local commissioner, mayor, continues to help violate that encroachment and that violation against the Constitution, to me, they're as treasonous as the people that originated it.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I'm at. That's just where I'm at. I'm like, wait a minute. You got to stand up for the Constitution. You took an oath. You're liable. You're in a fiduciary position where you have trustees that are dependent on you, and you're bound by the Constitution and the words that are on that paper. And when you start agreeing with somebody that violated that words on paper, you're as treasonous as the originator. To me, and I think we have to have, from county to county, school district to school district, water districts. Everybody has to understand what's right and what's wrong. What makes right, and what makes wrong, wrong. What's the Constitution about? And we violated all of those rights of the individual as a collectivism through that government and the state.
Yeah, and so that's a really good point there. We're talking about trying to hold the local government accountable. But if your representative is not listening, it doesn't matter.
Right.
That's the problem. It doesn't matter if Billy Boy Biden is top notch. Brittany Peterson is doing whatever she wants to do. We're SOL, and that's where we're at.
Well, and there again, it's the voice of the people, and it's the outrage of the people. We, the people, have not stood up. We have allowed this violation to happen. We've stood idle by, and the Constitution starts off, we the people. It don't start off, we the government. It doesn't start off, we the government, to form a more perfect union. It's we the people, and we are such a weak, pitiful group of complacent individuals, and that's why the government runs roughshod over us.
I think, and from what I've heard, because this stuff was making me so angry that I wanted to run for governor of Colorado, and I
Amen.
actually
Hallelujah.
put it out there. But there's a whole lot of stuff that goes along with that. But what I've heard is, because being in the military, we're apolitical, right? We're not supposed to. I mean, we definitely do have our opinions, but
You took an oath.
Yeah, we're apolitical.
Wait a
right?
minute. So when you say you're apolitical, and this is what irritates the bejesus out of me.
Yeah.
The line is in the sand already.
Right.
You've taken the oath.
Right. Well, we could, yes. I mean, we still vote, we do all that stuff, but as a leader in the military, right, we represent our commander in chief, whoever that is.
Absolutely.
And so, but the issue in Colorado has been that especially as a red state, which we haven't been since 2007, 2008, something like that. People who want to see it turn and go a different direction are just kind of fed up, and they're like, what point is it for me to get involved? Because we haven't seen anything change. It's been too long. Nothing's going to change. We haven't seen anything change. And so they're just not passionate about getting back in the game, because they think that it's going to be the same over and over again. But I'm telling you, if that is how people continue to view what is going on, it's just going to continue to get worse. And the bills are going to continue to pass that are going to decrease your individual rights and your property rights and everything that you can do. I mean, you see what happened in California with the fires. We're right there in Colorado. Our property taxes, our property insurance are insane. We have insurances that won't even come into Colorado anymore, and they won't insure property owners. It's going right along that path. So if you want to know what's going to happen in Colorado, just watch California. If something doesn't change, it's gonna be the same thing.
It's a mayday.
Yeah.
It's an absolute mayday. If you are a constitutional American that understands the republic and individual rights, you don't get involved politically, you only got yourself to blame. That's all I can say. And that's where it's at. We, the people, the voice of the people, have got to rise to the occasion and understand. And here again, it comes from knowledge. The amount of knowledge that was just shared here and how far over the dam, the water's gone. The erosion needs to be stopped pretty quick. Otherwise, this state won't be worth nothing. It'll be another California.
Yep.
And it was red not long ago. It was red when I moved here. And I was complacent. I'm going to be the first to admit. I was like, oh, I voted. They'll take care of it. They will take care of it. Little did I know that there was people that had a Marxist agenda where they wanted America to fail. They got in the position with a lot of deception. And that's where we're at now. The enemy is within. And what is in a man's heart? What kingdoms are they carrying? And that's where we're down to. So it's getting real. It's about as real as it's ever going to get. So
What you think, Byron?
I always like to, so we're talking at the state level, but bringing it down to the local level. I know here in Westcliff and Custer County, generally there's a big issue with housing, right? So we're real estate people. The practical effect here is, Katie mentioned, between property taxes rising, insurance for properties rising, and then all of these additional conditions and unfunded mandates from the state government. It's been very, very difficult to solve anything resembling a housing crisis. A lot of feedback I get. I work with Custer County Economic Development, Charles Bogle and his team. I did that for a number of months. We were interested in kind of finding a solution for housing for your teachers, your first responders, your service workers up here. It was something we were passionate about when we first started here about 4 years ago. But given those things, those variables, the cost of insurance, property tax hikes 2 times, and then, working through, the staff requirements and the code requirements and building permits and all of those things, coupled with these new requirements coming from the state and the new constraints, we're not really interested in developing anymore. Something's got to change.
Yeah.
Right.
the environment is just unbelievable for investors to step up and solve the problem.
It's really,
and
really
it's
bad.
almost as if they want the government to be the problem solver.
Yeah.
Well, and that's what's going on here, right? It's like, okay, we got all these grants, we got all this stuff. They want to force this. We call it. They want to call it low income housing or workforce housing. We call it low income housing, right?
Yeah.
Let's get all these grants and put these people in facilities that they can't afford.
And there's not even jobs for them.
And that's the whole thing. So we did that a while back when we were talking about how many jobs are actually available in Custer County. There's only like 700 employers total, supposedly, with the research that we could come up with. And so it's like, how is someone, back to what we're talking about? Okay, the super high cost of actually starting from scratch. If you take private money and you come in and you say, okay, we want to do this for the teachers or the first responders. We're gonna build this building, this facility for these people. The cost is so high, the jobs are not there. I mean, it just doesn't pencil out. Obviously, or you wouldn't be trying to not be interested in doing it anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, the numbers just don't work.
Yeah.
And then we have these grants, right? Or before Trump cut a bunch of them grants off. I mean, these people were trying to get all that stuff done, trying to get all these low income housings put in here. They were going to put it in from here to Rosita Road, and I mean, this is not the community for that, right? I mean, there's no. How are they going to pay for it?
No,
Right, and without government money, you can't pay for it.
in another issue that come up during the podcast thing, and since we've been doing this, is we don't have the sewage facility to accommodate more toilets flush. I mean, it's the most asinine thing. And for the mayors not to talk to the commissioners, and for Round Mountain not to put this at the top of their agenda and saying, look, we haven't made it. You know, we got 900 or 1,000, 1,200 people in the two towns, and not counting the businesses and all that.
750.
Yeah, so whatever it
Water
is,
towns.
and for that not to be, talking to Bill Kendall, oh, we gotta shut the towns down, it's gonna cost millions of dollars, and, oh, Lord.
Watch the camera there.
You know what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, it was unbelievable amount of lack of planning, fiduciary responsibility. They're actually responsible for some of that stuff, and they put a blind eye to it. But somebody carrying a gun doing inspections, oh my God, let's fire her right away. Or what was that sidewalk thing? The contrast of ignorance.
Oh yeah,
Of the issues that should be addressed aren't being addressed, and the things that are being addressed are just absolutely upside down backwards. So we just live in that time.
Yeah, it's
Kind of grievous. We need stronger leadership. We need people that have some strong leadership in them, without a doubt.
well. Then,
I mean, towns have strategic plans, right? And so I think that's kind of a point that we've had with the small towns that we've worked with doing the historic renovations, is when you try to revive things that are already here, which you can do, right? But it takes a whole lot of money. A lot of times it makes more sense to tear them down. And that's why you have grants to help you so that you don't do that, right? But towns have strategic plans. So, and I think a lot of times leaderships, they forget about that. So what is your strategic plan, right? Does it need to be amended based on what is going on? And how can you get there? Set goals and get there. I mean, we've heard all sorts of stuff about, the sewage and the water and all this stuff, but there's also a whole lot of technology out there that towns can prosper, and you don't have to have a ton of development, but you can do it responsibly. And you can still have property owners maintain their rights. I mean, homeowners associations are another great point, right? With property ownership and property rights. But you can do it responsibly.
Well,
you just have to have the conversation and not stall it.
Here again, it's going to come down to common sense. If you don't have the water and the sewage and the capability of building stuff in town, my first thought when the housing crisis was coming up, they're saying, "Oh, it's a crisis." I'm like, man. Seemed to me like we could solve that as individuals and make that go away, but apparently we cannot. So in the county, you have your own septic, you have your own well. So strategically placing the deputies throughout the valley without taxing the water. And then here again, we may be able to position some of the school teachers, not inside the town, but in the county, where they have their own well and septic. So instead of the tail wagging the dog, there are common sense approaches to doing this, and it could be a rotational thing. Oh, this teacher said, we want to move to Ohio. Okay, well, you don't get to take your house. That was kind of a given. That was part of the draw that got you here. There's some common sense things that can take place that's not so stupid.
That's the thing, is there's plenty of solutions.
Absolutely.
I mean, we almost are acting like there's no solutions, and that's not the case. There's plenty of solutions. It's just people don't want to.
Right.
They don't want to do it.
They need the government to See, and that's where we're losing it.
There's so much deception, just like what we went through with Round Mountain, right? I mean, Jimmy and
Boy,
I,
oh boy.
we were kind of on the forefront of that, and I mean, they lied to us, completely lied to us. They told us, oh, these tests, we took every test and it passed everything, both sides of the scale, and come to find out they never had a credible test of any kind, but yet they would publish that in the paper. So I mean, that whole thing right there, I mean, that you're lying to the constituents, you're lying to the people that are paying you to do the service that you do. That right there is, I mean, that's strike 1, 2, and 3, right?
That's a breach. That's absolute breach of service. That's a breach of duty. It's to the point where it's treasonous. When you take taxpayers' dollars and you use it against the taxpayer, when you take my money and you war it against me, you have just stepped over the line. And that's where we're at here. That's where it's taking place. That's the problem. Therein lies the real problem. They're not intercessors. They're not interceding on our behalf. They're interceding on their political gain and their little cabal that they serve. And we got it right here, right now. We'll see some more lawsuits come up because of the bad decision making that our leaders in the community are doing. Because they have no idea of what their position requires and the attitude and the personality that it takes to administer that at all. At all.
Were you guys aware, Byron, of of the redistricting that happened?
Not up here, no.
So we used to be, I forget, so we're in Congressional District 7. So I can't remember how many years ago, but what they've done is the legislative powers put us in with, we're in Jefferson County.
Oh,
I did
oh
notice
yes,
that.
we did
did
know
see
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, Fremont County, Custer County, Jefferson County, yeah,
So it's up
and the
against both.
representative.
It's up into Broomfield,
The
right?
refer-
They
Yeah.
completely neutralized our voice.
Yeah.
And you know who
We
did
saw
that?
that.
You know who was in charge of doing that? Who was the black guy that worked for Biden? God, what was his name?
I thought you had it on your tongue there. I can't remember it either. You usually can remember it.
I can. I'm just so irritated about all this stuff. Eric Holder. Eric Holder was the guy that manipulated a lot of the gerrymandering that took place in neutralizing Republicans' vote. Absolutely. And it was so in our face. It was like, we got 3,500 people. Why are you messing with us? But we had a pretty staunch Republican red voice with the Sentinel.
Okay, so.
Wait a minute, Bruce. You're not in this yet.
I am. Eric Holden was not in the Biden administration, he was in the.
Obama. Yeah,
administration.
there you go. He was in Obama.
Sorry. Hey, guys.
Little crazy guy in the audience. Bruce, we love you. Thank you. Thank you for the correction. But you're absolutely right. So we're going to focus on these two people. These are our guests here.
My name is Nimrod.
Nimrod. Okay, Bruce Nimrod.
No,
Just Nimrod.
Yes, the congressional district makes 0 sense. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. So some of the things that have taken place, it's a 100-year game. It's a 50-year game. It's
Right.
a 30-year game. We're sitting here in the now. We're resting in the Constitution, the Bible, and our guns. That's what we as Americans, strong Americans, rest in. On the opposite side of that, the other people are so proactive in the legislation and undermining all of that to take this country down. And we are so complacent, we don't realize that. But they hate America. People that actually took the oath and our politicians hate America. That's a scary, scary thing. But we're not going to entertain that idea that people actually got into a position of taking the oath and representing people, constituents, and then having that devilish kind of kingdom inside them where we can get bills passed.
Yeah. Well,
So it's very evident now.
it's very scary because you
it's
don't
very
have to
evident.
have credentials, right? You don't.
There's
you
no
don't-
credentials to even be a
there-
judge.
Yeah, you don't have to have credentials to
Absolutely.
represent the people. You just have to have the people like you and vote you in. So that's
You got to
kinda
have the
how it
money
works.
to
And the
get
money.
you elected.
And the money.
And the money.
So I was told $20 million to run for governor.
Right.
And with in Colorado as a Republican, 20% chance, $20 million. So you got to have the money. Yeah. And it's sad. That's the game.
So the perversion that's come upon the constitutional republic needs to be really, really looked at if we're going to save it, and that's where we're at, folks. We have a crisis on our hands. One of it is damn sure property rights that we're talking about tonight, in the legislation in Colorado, that renters got more rights than the owner do. I owned rentals in Denver. And that's one of the reasons I live here and I don't have rentals.
Yeah,
And I've been
that's
on
very
vacation
true.
ever since.
Smart
Yeah.
man.
Yeah, I am not going to deal with that form of governmental abuse.
Well, we are selling our. I mean, I'll tell you across the board though with property rights. I mean, the bills are written as such that every bill that is passed, it gets tighter and tighter, right? So it's like a slippery slope. Or it's like something that's happening over time. Like, okay, this bill just makes it a little bit worse for a property owner. Okay, and then the next bill that comes out, it just makes it a little bit worse. And then it does it again and again and again, right?
it's like
and
turning up the frying pan.
That's
That's
right.
exactly
That's
right.
exactly what is happening.
And we're the frogs.
It's exactly what's
we
happening.
are the frogs.
And so people
until the
see, oh,
frogs
this one's
retaliate.
not that bad.
Yeah.
But they just kind of play on each other and
Yeah.
they keep getting worse and worse. That's what's happening. So it's scary. It's scary to watch. And I mean, we're selling our properties in Colorado because we see it happening and we don't want to deal with it. So,
Absolutely. And there's a lot of folks selling out and moving to red states.
Yeah. yeah, absolutely.
My wife's worked at the grocery store for 25 years, and she's gone. The friends that I've known here forever are leaving because of the governmental stranglehold
Yeah.
and the laws and the stuff that's taken place. And instead of staying in the fight, because I think I'm staying in the fight, I don't think I'm leaving. I'm pretty heavily invested. For me to pick up as a plumber, construction guy, and try to reinvent myself in another community, I'm not doing it.
Right.
I mean, I'm here. I'm going to stand. There's
Right.
no way around it. So they're going to have to deal with me at least.
What'd you think, Byron?
Yeah, I would think. I think to sum up from what I see, it's get involved, right? Express your voice. It seems like right now, the political climate is contentious, but and this may not be a popular sentiment, but there does seem to have been a mandate now. I'm tired of the status quo over the last 4 years and then 8 year stint before that. So there may be some momentum. Colorado is a tough nut to crack because of the overwhelming majority, at the state level and the Democratic governor, and bills being shotgun, especially as it relates to property rights and individual rights. But it does seem like if we can get some momentum at the national level over the next year and a half, 2 years, that there is an opportunity. But your voice is important. In Colorado, your money is important. So back the correct political party that's promulgating bills and ideas that nest with yours. I think we're in alignment on most of these. But we're all about individual rights and property owner rights. So, get vocal.
I mean, you're two veterans that wrote a blank check for your lives.
Yeah,
That's a big deal.
it is.
So here
Very proud
again,
of that. Yeah.
Here again, the voice of the people need to get loud and proud. And here again, the left liberal people that are going against this constitutional republic are so proactive and always moving because they have a desire to take us down. We're sitting here because we are enjoying the fruits of this country and this great experiment. But we've gotten complacent.
Yeah,
We've gotten complacent.
I think language is a big challenge. I talk about this quite a bit. Is being critical about the language that you're hearing. So if somebody makes the statement that everybody deserves a fair chance, out of the 5 people in this room, everybody would agree everybody deserves a fair chance, right? That's a very
Except Bruce.
Bruce probably does too.
He does.
But everybody, don't
Bruce,
encourage him.
stop it.
Don't encourage
We're not
him.
going to encourage you, Bruce. Get over there.
So everybody deserves a fair chance.
Here he goes, Bruce.
You're not going to argue with that, but the interpretation of that is, do you set the conditions where everybody has the same opportunity, right? And then they can use their God-given ability to excel, right? Regardless of where you come from and whatever else. The conditions are such that you can excel if you work hard, if you take risk, you make smart decisions, right? You follow the rules. This is a country where everybody can win. So that's set the conditions. That's one idea. The other is everybody deserves a fair chance. So we're going to take rights from one person. And when I say rights, I'm talking about whether it's redistribution of wealth, whether it's property rights, which what we're talking about tonight, whatever whatever it may be, and reallocating rights to other people so that everybody has the same chance or everybody has a fair chance. Those are 2 totally different notions of how to interpret that statement. So I would just
Absolutely.
encourage
and it comes
everybody.
down to
Yeah.
IQ, it also comes down to natural God-given ability. Some people are smart and they can excel and they can capitalize really well. Other people may not have that talent, and they're designed to be maybe an employee for somebody that does have that. It's a harsh reality, but it's something that you got to say, at least that person can go to work and have a job.
Yeah.
But in using the faith of the person that started the business and took the risk, you get to come in and actually make a living where you may not have been able to make a living.
Yeah.
I mean, I look at things, and what you said, there's some good thinking there, and a lot of people don't have the ability to even think. And therein lies a big problem, is we have been taught what to think, not how to think.
Yep.
And there again,
Agreed.
we're captive.
Yeah.
We're captive of not being able to think and reason within inside ourselves. So there's just some systemic problems,
Yeah.
and it doesn't. It's not just the superficial part of it is one thing, but the heart of the matter is the other thing. And to be able to recognize it, that the problem, and then come up with a solution.
Yeah.
And that's the key.
The other kind of high level thing is, and this is an old adage, right? Especially important now coming out of COVID and disincentivizing people to work hard, right? Like allocating monies for people, encouraging and incentivizing them to stay home and not go work. I think Ronald Reagan said it, the best social program is a job.
Absolutely.
Right? A lot of people don't understand that having a job and being accountable to show up to work, having people count on you, come bring your best, bring your A game, be on time,
Absolutely.
earn your wage, contribute to an organization. Doesn't matter if it's a W-2 job, you're working for the government, you're working for a nonprofit. People are counting on you and you perform. That's the best form of self-esteem there is out there. And it's the same thing with going back to the property ownership, right? Having your house, whether you rent a house or you own the house, it's your dwelling unit. Having accountability for your own dwelling unit, right? And being master of your own circumstances and taking care of your dwelling unit. Like those are things that people have been disincentivized from doing over the last however many years. And these new property rights, in my opinion, are just another natural extension of that. So, yeah, those are my thoughts that you asked. I know it's a lot.
No, well, I mean, that's what we need, right? We try to find solutions here. I mean, most of the time, everybody knows that stuff's bad, right? So, like, how can we fix it, right?
Right.
How are we going to be able to come out smelling like roses? So, I appreciate that.
Well, no, and that's the heart of the matter. It's going to take some critical thinking. It's going to take people with some pretty good brains, and the biggest thing is common sense, and then looking at human nature, and then to be able to combat and incentivize. You don't want to encourage selfishness. You want to encourage, it's better to give than it is to receive. It's better to give than it is to receive. You said it very well. It's good to get up, be engaged, be giving and living and engaged in society. When you get a whole group of folks that have been disincentivized, they've just been dumbed down, and they were actually poisoned with selfishness, in my opinion. They were poisoned with just being selfish. I didn't have to do anything and I got something. When you give that to the flesh, when you give that to some kind of carnality, some carnal selfish mind, that programming is a cancer. And that's where we're at. And until we can shake that off, we're going to have severe problems. They're saying 5 plumbers are retiring and 2 are coming on. But it would take 10 of the 2 that are coming on to replace 1 that's leaving. Because of the work ethic and the integrity and the honor. So we're going to have a huge windfall here, a negative windfall of an absolute calamity. So buckle up. That's all I can say. Buckle up.
That just does what we were talking about earlier about driving the cost up.
Yeah.
Right. I mean,
Oh,
that
for
whole
sure.
situation just,
Yeah.
there is no cheap housing anymore.
It's very true.
And it comes down to the why. Number one, the government has collapsed any kind of individual incentive to go ahead and take the risk and try to make some profit by providing housing for somebody that can't provide their own housing. They can't build their own house, so they have to rent until they can save up enough money. So inflation is, number one, is one of the elephants in the room. Inflation is a big elephant in the room, and COVID absolutely manifests that.
In my opinion, the biggest problem is it's all about education. How
Hands down.
how someone can believe that they're entitled to housing that they can't pay for. Like where did
Well,
you come from? Right?
so-
Why, how can you even think?
Well, because they're being
already
told that
invited.
from our government. I mean,
But yeah.
so now
Let's-
landlords can't even look at income.
could be here
You
next week,
can't
you know.
can't discriminate against a potential tenant for
You be the star
income
of the show.
or from their credit score or from where their income comes from or for their criminal background,
You gotta be
right? You
still and
can't.
just hang out.
They're essentially saying landlords, you can't look at any of that. If somebody says that they can pay it, then they can pay it, and you have to let them stay in your house.
Yeah, that's.
No, but hang-
I
I mean, we saw what happened. We saw what happened with that in the mortgage industry when lenders were giving people loans that they couldn't afford. Right? We had a collapse of the housing market. That's what happens.
Absolutely.
yeah, it's.
That's called cheating,
Yeah.
manipulation, lying, propping up. All those things are so unbiblical and so. It's just a fake thing, and it has only one way to go. If you didn't earn it, but you got it, you still owe it. And if you can't pay it off, you got a problem.
Yeah.
And that's where we go. It's that simple. Common sense and breaking things down in a very simple term needs to happen. But we also have to have politicians that aren't more concerned about their political gain. They're more concerned about the constituents and the future of those people. And we don't have that. We got everybody concerned about getting reelected and staying on the government tit.
Yep, that's a fact.
And that is a cancer. That's why term limits, and then also people got to be engaged in their local politics. And if somebody's not doing their job, they need to be held accountable.
Yeah.
And we don't do it. Everybody's too kind and complacent and la-di-da-di-da. It's fixing to blow up. It's fixing to get bad. The unintended consequences are upon us. Just the way it is.
So we're getting kind of close to the end. Katie, do you have a kind of a closing, maybe a closing scenario of how you think that we might be able to kind of avoid calamity here?
I wish I did. I mean, I wish the outlook looked brighter, but honestly, again, I think it starts with we have to change the representatives, the state representatives, in order to turn these bills around, because we're just not going to be able to do it if we don't have state representatives. There's only a couple Republicans, right? And so every time you push back and you try to be pro property right, it just gets shot down. And it's like, nope, we're not doing it. I mean, we even saw what happened with the Second Amendment rights, right? It was the same sort of issue. And you have, I mean, the lobbyists with the Second Amendment are enormous compared to property rights. So we have to change who is representing us at the state level. I think, again, that's the takeaway. And if you feel like you care about property rights and you care about what's happening in Colorado and you don't like what you see, everybody has to band together and to change it in this next election. That's the only way that it's going to change.
And is there a band together group? How do we band together? Even if it's just a seed of start. I mean,
Right.
I'm a farmer.
Yeah. So
And
get with
I-
your local your local Republican groups. I think, you have your the different groups at your local level. Start there. I would say that's a good point to start.
We've had some real trouble with our local Republican.
Okay. Well, that's unfortunate.
It very much is. So, did you mention another group?
Well, the Workforce Housing Coalition is the one that I am. It's the one that I am involved in, but it's a lobby group. So again, we can only lobby so much. We only lobby to the representatives that then shoot it down and
that's-
say, no, we're not going to do it.
Is that
so?
almost non-political though? That's both sides of the aisle. That's an issue that people are
It is, but
as lobbyists.
Yeah, but yes, the lobbyists can absolutely be both sides of the aisle. Our lobby group is to protect property rights and to protect what is happening. And again, it's attainable housing. If you protect the landlords, then you protect tenants. You can't protect tenants and then protect landlords. That's not how it works.
No, absolutely not.
You protect landlords and then you protect tenants. So our lobby group really works to kind of get the word out for the mom and pop landlords who we represent, not the big apartment complexes, the big organizations. And Colorado is passing bills based on one bad actor. They just passed a bill based on what happened in Aurora with the gang, right? Where Colorado can now step into the shoes of a multifamily property owner and take their property over. They can take it over. They can sell it. They can continue to rent it. They can fix it. They can do whatever they feel is necessary to protect the tenants. That is a bill that just passed with one, and actually the government is the one that put the Venezuelan gang in that apartment complex to begin with. But that's where we are. Because one bad thing happens, it gets in the news, and so our representatives think that they have to change the law.
Absolutely, and it's a pattern of behavior. It's caused the problem, solve the problem.
Yes.
And it's that sinister.
Well, then it makes residents reliant on the government.
Yes.
Which is what,
To step in
in
and
the
fix
most
it.
insidious characterization, I think that's what you're getting at is
Yeah.
that's what they want.
Yeah, and I'm not going to back. People know I'm not. I see stuff pretty clear, and it's absolutely an attack on a constitutional republic, and it's where the government becomes everybody's everything.
Right.
And instead of under God, we're under government.
Right.
And instead of it's we the people, it's us the government.
Right.
And that don't fit good with me.
This is a great example.
We know
that-
it doesn't work.
And they don't tease that story
We
out.
know it doesn't work.
No, it's a
So Denver
asinine.
becomes effectively a sanctuary city. Everybody comes to Denver, and then the mayor of Denver shuttles illegal immigrants outside of the city of Denver to, in this case, Aurora. They take over an Auroran multifamily apartment complex, and the people who pay the rent there, the tenants there, now suffer as a result. And it's the
And they
same
blame it on the landlord.
the same Democratic mayor who did this. It's the same type of legislature that's approving these things. There's a linkage between this. So effectively, you put this multifamily apartment complex into receivership, right? And you take away the property right from the owner.
So now the government
Twice now.
can take it over. Yeah.
Twice. And now the government takes it over. I mean, it is insidious.
That's
And there's no accountability. It's brutal.
I mean that's all news to me too. I didn't realize that's how it was going down. So I sure do appreciate you guys kind of, do you got anything to kind of close with, Byron? Or
Well, I don't. I just appreciate the opportunity to,
Yeah,
to
thank
come
you.
on and,
Yeah.
express ourselves and let the audience get to know about us a little bit more. I think most of the stuff they know about us is limited to the feed store, and but yeah, so we're just really pleased to be here, and it's always good to chat with you.
yep, it's a real pleasure. I appreciate you guys coming on this evening.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
We really appreciate people that take chances, that are leaders, that are good with their money, and you guys need to be rewarded for taking the risk and the common sense and stuff that you know works. You know, that's what it comes down to. I mean, it's risk assessment. It's if I do this, if I have this much input cost, what am I going to get out? Why are we not teaching this in school? The largest investment most people are going to have is their home. Some people couldn't change a light bulb, let alone a hot water heater. And here again, the crippling of the individual and making us more of a collectivism. That's what these people that get in, that are in office now, that's their objective, is to bring this country down. And people don't get it. Strong individuals make a strong country. If you can weaken the individual, then you weaken the country. You don't even have to shoot a shot. You ain't got to do nothing. All you got to do is wait for the manifestation of that contamination to take place, that cancer to take it over. That's why China sits there. Oh, we're patient. Tick tock, tick tock. We need to think in terms like that. I mean, most people are not going to wake up until it's way too late, and that's okay. It is what it is. I mean, it's grievous, but
Well, here's to waking the people up. So with all that being said, we sure do appreciate you guys coming on this evening, and maybe we can get something going here at a later date with some more information. And we appreciate everybody watching. Hope you have a great evening, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks.
thanks.